Hey everyone. Today I want to talk about this controller I found on AliExpress. I think I paid $22 or something like that for it. I've seen it for around $20 that you can buy. So definitely very, very cheap. Now, one thing that drew my eye to this controller was the fact that it had back buttons, sort of like the Xbox Series Elite controller or like those PS4, PS5 add-ons that cost about 20 bucks. For the same price, you get a controller that has those back buttons and also supports Xbox, Switch, and direct input mode. I'm really surprised by these controllers. There are many varieties on AliExpress, but I never found any reviews on this one, so that's why I want to talk about it a bit. You can get for a similar price this DSP D8 controller, which is much wider. Has analog triggers, but no back buttons. There's plenty of reviews on this, so I suggest that you check out other YouTube videos and see what they have to offer. Because there are no reviews for this one, by the way, this is the JK02 controller. I'm going to talk more about this. They're both, like I said, around the same price. It's crazy to think about for the price of both of these. It's still cheaper than like the name brands mobile controllers you find around, and in my opinion, higher quality because these support Switch, Xbox, and then there's like regular direct input mode as well. Like I said, this drew my eye because it had the back buttons. And I've been having a good time playing various games on my folded device. Works just fine. One of the things I've been playing recently is Super Mario 64. It's not the most useful game, I would say, to have the back buttons, but it is sometimes useful, especially when you have the modded version that has freestyle camera, more like the traditional games rather than the original camera, which was kind of wonky before in the N64 version. Overall, very, very good experience. I love being able to play one of my favorite games outside on the patio on my phone, which has a great screen, greater than you can see on any device, that like those mini console type devices. It's really nice being able to sort of just have the best screen in the house, which is, your phone usually or a tablet, and be able to play games on that. And no input lag, nothing like that. Overall, I would say this is a very good experience for the price of $20 or so. Like, I highly recommend being able to do this, use it with any phone you have. It doesn't have to be a super wide like this. It'll work. That said, I do want to mention some of the drawbacks. So first of all, the D-pad, it's a little too mushy for my tastes. This has hurt me in previous instances, like when I was playing Tetris. There were moves that I could have made where I moved it all the way to the left, and I didn't get that because the D-pad was just too mushy to have fast responsive movements.
Come on, I should have been able to do that.
Another trade-off, there are no analog triggers. Just digital only. So if you're trying to play a racing game which uses those triggers for variable speed, you're not gonna have a great time using this controller. The DSP actually, on the other hand, has really, really solid triggers. Like, these are one of the best triggers I've ever felt on a game controller, and this is just some like random AliExpress stuff. That's crazy to think about. Another interesting aspect of this controller is the fact that it has this sort of like heatsink and an actual fan. The only way the fan works is if you actually have it plugged in. I measured the power draw, and it does take about 8 watts. So as you can imagine, powering that by your phone will drain your phone battery very quickly, and that's not something you probably want to do. But by the way, the sort of like port to connect it, it's USB-C, which is always nice to see. I'm glad to see so many devices with USB-C. But anyway, there's this trigger mechanism that can lock the device, sort of guard it. which is really cool. But at the same time, that means if you have a bulkier USB-C cable, you might have trouble fitting it in. And almost immediately, yeah, the fan turns on. Almost immediately, I do feel this being cooler, which is crazy. And not only that, one thing I've noticed is condensation forms. I don't understand it, but I think over time you will see it happen live during this video. I don't really know, really, to be honest, if this helps with the thermals or not. I haven't done adequate tests, but that might be something that you're interested in testing out, or like maybe you've had previous problems with thermals, and so this might be something useful. I will say this thing here, because of this sort of heatsink, spring-loaded, whatever the hell it is, it does cause maybe some jank, some anxiety, because my phone is not flush. It's got this little heatsink. So, I mean, honestly, it's been fine, but it might be something a little awkward, not as firm as like using a controller like this. Because of the angle, because of the way this works, it doesn't sit as like I would hope like this. And so it kind of moves around a bit, and so that's something, you know, you might want to be worried about, especially if you accidentally do something like that and then boom, you fall. It's been pretty solid. I haven't been too worried once I got used to it, but just definitely, you know, get familiar first with how the phone feels and everything like that before you know, trust it in anxious, high-risk environments like that. So like I said, it works with not just Android, you know, Xbox and so forth, but you can even connect it to your Switch. So it's very, very simple to switch between game modes. Definitely take pictures of the manual as soon as you get it. I did this myself. I already lost the manual. I've referenced them so many times. If you stick around to the end of the video, just fast forward. I'm gonna have screenshots of the manuals, so you can just pause and take a look and all that. One thing that's interesting is when you switch between Switch and Xbox. Look at the mappings. You got A and B. If you're familiar with this normal Switch, it's B and A, Y and X. In this case, when you do switch to the Switch mode, it follows the actual, you know, placement of the controller, not what the letter says. So B becomes A, and B becomes A, and A becomes B. I like this because a lot of Switch games don't even mention the button name. It just sort of like tells you which direction to press, and this would be accurate. Now, using this controller here, I found that when you switch to Switch mode, B becomes B and A is A, so they're reversed in the actual placement, and that can cause some confusion for some people. Personally, I like that the fact that this has it that the way it does, where it reverses A and B when you switch to the Nintendo Switch mode. Unfortunately, you cannot just tilt and aim, which I found would be a very useful feature when playing Breath of the Wild or other games like this, Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch. This controller does not have gyroscope support, but the manual does allude that some models do. I couldn't find any on AliExpress that mentioned this specifically for the JK02 model, but I don't know. Maybe that's something that's about to come. Maybe not. I don't know. If you get any updates on this, you know more information, you found a controller in the wild that does state to support gyroscope, let me know in the comments. One other thing I want to mention is the rumble. One of the cool things about these controllers is you can adjust the rumble intensity and so forth. All I'll say is, like, at the 100% speed, the rumble is not a great experience. You probably want to adjust it. I personally set it to the, you know, whatever the minimum level is, and I find it's a great experience. But, you know, your mileage may vary. We're all just sensitive to different areas of that. I noticed that with this other controller here, the BSP one, and again, I don't want this to be a rival comparison, but I think this one was a bit too intense, and this one was a bit better when I had it on the lowest setting. I've had this controller for a few months now, actually. been playing it here and there for various things. I've been streaming games from my PC and playing all sorts of action games sometimes. Having the back buttons and being able to jump and dash and so forth while being able to adjust the camera has been super helpful. This is a feature that I pretty much can't live without now that I've been using it. So when playing games like Elden Ring or Immortals Phoenix Rising, I always try to have that back button mapped, and you try to have make sure I use usually an Elite controller if I'm sticking around playing on the TV. But there are times where I want to play on my patio and so forth, and having no compromises when it comes to the controller functionality is super cool. The back buttons work great, and I mentioned all the reasons why you might want to use it, control the camera and all that. Well, I don't know if you can tell in the video, but they're really clickety. So if you're in bed with someone or something like that, you share a room, you're trying to play this in a quiet place, some people will definitely get annoyed by the sound of you using those back buttons. I found every other button on the controller is fine, but those back buttons are really loud, so unless you're using headphones, you're definitely going to notice them. A few other things I want to mention that's really neat is using it with a case, it is very doable. Like, you don't have to worry too much. I have this freaking super big case on my phone that has this thing in the middle for the hinge protection, right? And so even despite all that, look at this thing. I can comfortably use this controller. I have this thing stick out, and yet it doesn't really, I can do it. It's fine. So that is great. Again, your mileage may vary with whatever cases, attachments, blah 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 that you have, but I like the fact that I can just take this controller, slide it open, put my phone in there, don't even have to take the case off my phone off, and I'm good to go. I can just start playing my favorite games. Highly recommend this controller. I think instead of spending, $150, $200 on an adequate game console controller that you can find these days on AliExpress, you can just spend $20, get one of these controllers, stick it to your phone, which is already very high spec for more than what you probably use it for when you just browse YouTube videos or scroll Instagram or whatever. You can play some games on it at a very high frame rate. I'm playing this Mario 64 at 120 FPS, which is amazing. I'm streaming from Moonlight at 120 FPS, which is also amazing. Very great experience. Like, you're not gonna get a 120 FPS device typically for under like $300 or $400. There's no compromises at this other than your Wi-Fi connection. I mean, that's actually a pretty big compromise. But the phone itself is very performant and everything. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you find any other controllers that you think are worth checking out, let me know. And yeah, if I forgot to mention something too, please let me know.